Tonight, our set feels a bit more like a bar than a studio. I'm joined by Steve Abrams, co-founder of Mill Street Brewery. And welcome to Toronto Speaks Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Kosiner, and tonight I am joined by the lovely Steve Abrams, co-founder of Mill Street Brewery. And he's here to answer your questions because you've got a lot of entrepreneurial experience, and you co-founded Mill Street Brewery and brought it 10 years ago from the ground up. It's a great Canadian success story. And he's here to answer your questions, and so am I. So if you thought about starting a company or you're curious about what it's like to brew beer, give us a call. Number to reach us is 416-446-7090. Facebook, you can reach us at facebook.com/Toronto Speaks. You can tweet us at Toronto Speaks, and even email us at, the email address is, if you say at before, people get confused, torontospeaks@rci.rogers.com. So the formalities are done. We are officially into the show. Yeah, exactly, one at.
One at.
And so what's going on? How did you start Mill Street Brewery? That's what I want to know.
We're in the midst of our 10th birthday.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Go.
It's crazy.
And we were talking beforehand a little bit about your background, and you started out in the States.
I did. I'm American.
But now you're up here.
And I'm Canadian now.
And a great Canadian success story, as I said, right? So it's funny how things work, right?
It was crazy. I moved here for love, not for beer. My wife is Canadian. So I moved up here 2001. Back then they had those visas where you came up here, you had 3 months to get married.
Yes.
So we were up here, got married in August of 2001, and then a month later, a horrible incident happened. 9/11 hit. And a lot of people I knew back in the States and up here as well kind of, I think, use that as a point to look at their life and seeing how things were going. Maybe this was a chance to really just go for it, whatever it was. It was just a weird time in history. So I went for it with two other guys, and we decided we were going to open a craft brewery here in Toronto.
And how do you decide that out of all things you could open up a business for? Because
we spun a wheel in brewery.
Did you? It was that way? You pointed at that one? That's what you landed on?
That was it. That or a carny.
Yeah.
Initially, a friend of mine, he was a chef. The two of us were planning on doing a pub together up here.
Okay.
So there's a theme of alcohol through this whole thing. But his brother-in-law at the time was a brewer.
Okay.
And had some amazing recipes, and we sat down and looked at what the possibilities were. And at the time in Toronto, there were only a few craft breweries. Back then they called them microbreweries. Now it's craft is the real
and
term.
I want you to define that in a little bit. We'll get into that back over there. But continue.
But coming from the U.S., I saw that there was definitely, and this is the entrepreneurial side, there was a need for more interesting beers in Toronto. There was a lot of great brewers, but people were kind of doing a lot of safe things. And I was used to stuff like Sierra Nevada from the U.S., Sam Adams, and a lot of smaller breweries that were kind of pushing the envelope for flavor. And you weren't seeing that too much up here. There were a couple guys doing it, but not too successfully because generally, like the palates up here were kind of conservative.
Yeah.
So we decided to take a three-pronged approach. The organic lager, first one in Ontario, a light lager that we knew based on the research. We did do a little research, just enough to get us in trouble. Yeah,
And I don't know, just for the record, I've been to taste tests for these sort of things, and it's actually a lot of fun doing public research on alcoholic beverages, which, you get to try different samplings, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a good time.
When you're behind the glass watching people drink and talk about beer, it can be pretty funny. So, no, the organic, obviously it had the organic sense that we were about 4 or 5 years before you had aisles in places like Loblaws dedicated to organic products. And we knew there was a big future in this. And personally, it was something that I was purchasing with my wife. We were about to have a child. There was a lot of concerns about what was going on in the environment, what was going into our food. So it really resonated with me. The organic was great. Tank House Ale, of course, was something that was a pure flavor-driven product. We wanted something that tasted kind of like Sierra Nevada, if you ever had that one. A lot of hops, 5 kinds of malt. It's just a beautiful beer. And when we did our first test batch, we just fell in love with it. And it scared some people around here at first because it was so hoppy at the time. Now we have beers that are, double hop. It's changed a lot in 10 years.
So, and you started as an English teacher at one point, and then you went into a hedge fund, became a hedge fund manager.
No, I was a mutual fund
Mutual
analyst.
fund analyst. Sorry, okay, my apologies.
Yeah.
So then how did that progression and how does that contribute to being where you're at today?
Well, you're taking a life experience of being an English teacher, I guess, standing in front of people, being able to sell.
Yes.
I think I've met a lot of former teachers who've parlayed that into sales. So there's certainly something to be said about that. No education goes unwasted, right? Like you have to utilize it. When it came to the mutual fund thing, I was a writer. I guess I had an English major background. So I was able to learn about finance while I was writing about it. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing was, eventually when I moved up to Canada, I got a gig at Mutual Fund Television. And I'm talking about mutual funds, and I just lived here about 4 months, and I was, kind of looking up right before I went on the TV to make sure I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Seg funds, things like that.
Yeah.
It's a very different market from the U.S. So being able to sort of talk, comfortably about whatever topic. And then I was a musician too.
Yes.
Which I still do. Got a gig coming up, which is very exciting.
You're saying in Vegas,
I'm playing in Vegas, yeah. With my band Tennessee Voodoo Coupe. We're going to be playing at the Orleans Casino, opening up for Little Richard.
Wow.
Big
it
deal.
Is, yeah.
I'm pretty excited. But it's for fun now. But I used to do it for a living. So there's certainly a theme of performing, being in front of people, just like this, just having fun, and it's been a fun ride.
So what makes a great beer?
Well, it's a very personal thing. And people often ask me what my favorite beer is, and it really depends on the time of year, the temperature, the weather. A lot of factors play into that. But what makes a great beer is consistency, quality, obviously the ingredients, and the love that's gone into it. So we have a bunch of amazing brewers at Mill Street. They develop recipes for things that they'd want to drink, classic styles, sometimes doing new interesting things and tweaks on classic styles. So I think there's a lot that goes into it. But consistency, I find, is a big part of it.
What's the business process been? So you started out in 2002, I assume, if it's your 10th year, or approximately, or 2013.
Yeah, there was about a year.
2003, like around there, approximately.
Yeah, Christmas '01, and then a year later we opened our doors.
Okay.
December of '02, we got our little license, the excise license.
And it takes a little while just to kind of get that business all up and running.
Yeah.
So when you started it up, what was the experience like initially?
Well, it was fun. It was very exciting knowing you're doing this, but at the same time, you're a newlywed. You want to have kids, and my wife was excited, but at the same time very scared. And I think it was the same experience for all of us because we were really sticking our necks out there. Mm-hmm. Of course, financing was a big deal, and there are 5 banks up here, and 4 said no, 1 said yes. We were very fortunate that there was a loan that you could get from Ontario for equipment. So yeah, it was good timing, but there was a lot of roadblocks to get there.
And that's some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about as well. We got to go to break in just a second,
Sure.
But when we come back, I want to get into a little bit more about what the business is like right now and the process all along. I know there's sort of been expansion along the way, especially in 2006 from what we were talking about earlier.
That's
so
right.
We'll get into a bit of that. There's lots of questions. If you've got any questions, rather, give us a call. You can call us at 416-446-7090. Again, you can also reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/Toronto Speaks. Quickly.
Yes.
Is that... And actually, sorry, we're going to take a quick break right now. So when we come back, we're going to be coming back live. Yeah, we're all over there. There's lots more to come with Steve, so be sure to contact us on Twitter, as I mentioned as well, at Toronto Speaks. And don't go anywhere. There's lots more to come with Steve when we come back. Thanks a lot. And welcome back to Toronto Speaks Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Kosiner, and joining me tonight again is Steve Abrams, who's the co-founder of Mill Street Brewery. If you've got a question for Steve, you can contact us via telephone at 416-446-7090. You You can tweet us at Toronto Speaks. You can also send us a message on Facebook at facebook.com/Toronto Speaks. As I mentioned earlier, you can even email us, torontospeaks@rci.rogers.com. We'd love to hear from you and any questions you have. So when we left off, right before the break, we were talking about just the early startup.
Yeah.
And what has it taken to actually get to where you are today? So you've got the location downtown, the original distillery location,
right,
which is in our beautiful background
Look
here
at that.
as well.
Yeah,
it just so happens. But what's the process been like, and can you walk me through?
Well, people have asked me, what was this all a plan? And no, did I imagine it would get to this level when we started? Absolutely not. By 06, we were doing okay, but we certainly needed what a lot of small businesses need, which is more cash. So we got some great people on board. Our CEO, Irvin Weitzman, has been phenomenal and really guiding us in the next stage of our life here. But early on, it was a challenge. But you're asking what specifically about the...
Yeah, well, so what are some of the milestones that you reached along the way?
Okay. So the milestones, launching the organic was pretty wild. We started with a little bottle. I don't know if anyone remembers out there, and we eventually changed to a larger one. It got people talking. A few years down the road, though, we changed to a larger bottle.
Does that affect a business? Like, it's like you assume that you're consuming way more booze, I guess, at that point if you have a larger bottle.
Yeah.
So,
but it was really initially women. We're pretty sure, we didn't have research, but we know women were drinking the organic in the smaller bottle. They thought it was cute and they liked the flavor. Guys were a little turned off, A, because it was organic, and they're just, why do I want to drink an organic beer? What is that? Joe Sixpack wasn't interested at the time. And it was a light lager. It just, wasn't that something that they were interested in until they would go to their fridge. Their wife had bought it. And we were pretty sure, because just seeing how it developed, they started falling in love with the beer.
Yeah.
But we would get hate mail.
Really?
I love this beer, but this bottle is too damn small. I want some of the beer. So we listened, and we eventually evolved into this larger bottle. And by 06, we were doing a lot of things differently. And we eventually opened the brew pub. Don't forget, down here, I'm pointing at it.
Yeah,
it's right there. Right there, actually.
So,
it was just a brewery when we opened. It was just a big space. We were all in bands. We used to rehearse there, have parties. But eventually we decided that having a brew pub and making it that our home and our R&D eventually, where we would develop new beers and try them out, it worked so beautifully, and the distillery's been a fantastic place for that.
Cool. So we've got our first Facebook question as well. So we're going to jump into that. And just for anyone who doesn't know, R&D's research and development as well. We like to have our glossary of key terms while we're on air. Jessica says, how do you continue to stay ahead of the market when your competitors are on an international scale? There you go.
That's a phenomenal question. I think they're watching us. The competitors on an international scale more and more are looking to craft brewers for the next big thing.
Yeah.
Do
you get approached by bigger companies? Is that something that happens, or is it all the craft breweries are sort of separate and do their own thing in their?
Well, we're part of an organization, the OCB, Ontario Craft Brewers, and we share information. We talk to each other. There's a lot of camaraderie. It's a neat industry. I mean, people bounce around between different companies, but you know what's coming up, and we work together politically. When there's tax issues, things like that. So there's certainly strength in numbers. I think right now the OCB represents about 45 small brewers, from us down to guys who are just starting out, steam whistles in it, guys like that. So it's really nice being as part of that community. But I would say, knowing how to compete, it's really just letting the brewers come up with these amazing ideas, and talking about R&D. The brew pub has been a place where we have things like our lemon tea beer. You sort of try that out. If folks like it, it may make it to the next level and eventually gets canned. And then you're selling it at the LCBO or the beer store. So having the ability to test things out and being creative and not afraid to try new and different things, that's always worked in our favor. We've been very successful with mix packs. We've really done well with those. And right now we have a spring pack, And
who decides what goes in that?
We kind of, Joel Manning, who's our brewmaster. I mean, he's the keeper of the recipes. But
it's quite the title too. Can you imagine? Like, is that on his business card, brewmaster?
He is. He is brewmaster.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's who you're going.
He's a big deal.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Who owns the bar? I'm the brewmaster.
He's the brewmaster. Yeah. I do not make beer, for the record. I have a couple times, but you wouldn't want me behind there. Just drink it.
That's like the odd one that goes into the.
Yeah. That's not my thing. I was bottle washer for a long time.
you?
But I did a lot of grunt work. But that's
Moving up in the world one day at a time.
Oh, I wore a lot of different hats when we started.
I believe that.
Like bookkeeping, driving the truck, just you name it.
Well, we got another question. The questions just keep pouring in. So we got one from Twitter right now as well, and I want to hear about the different hats that you've worn over the years. Question is, who made the decision about your unique beer flavors?
That is Joel Manning.
Joel Manning?
Joel Manning.
So tell us a little
I feel
about
like it's an ad for Joel Manning, the Appreciation Society. Joel Manning has been in the business for well over 20 years. He was the head of the Master Brewers Association in Canada. Just the credentials go on and on. But his passion for beer is boundless. And he's a great orator when it comes to talking about beer, getting people all excited about it. Gets me jazzed up. But he's a historian. He's well-rounded, so it's fun hanging out with him too because he's got other interests other than beer. But when he gets into like the history of a certain style of beer, where it comes from, what law was enacted in order to create this, Reinheitsgebot and things like that, he's really knowledgeable. So it's fun having him around. But he just knows what works because he's been doing it for so long. And things like the lemon tea beer were created in his kitchen. Literally. He's a guy who loves tea.
Yes.
So he wanted to figure out how to make a beer that had tea in it. And he spent months in his kitchen, much to his wife's chagrin, with all these different beers sitting around his kitchen, getting light struck. And
only imagine on that one.
Yeah, like a mad professor, But it's wonderful because the end result we all enjoy. So.
And is there like a base to beer and you add stuff to it? How does that process
Well, there's
work?
ales, right?
Yeah.
There's lagers. Typically, most of our flavored beers tend to be ales. They're easier to work with. Wheat beers are also, that would be in the ale side, but ales are...
From what you know of all these beers, because it's sort of different doing business, and I assume a lot